welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My first question, which is for all of you, for many years the story Tomb of the Cybermen was missing, and then in the early 90s it was found in Hong Kong.
In a skip.
In a skip.
In a skip?
What? Excuse me, I've got time to phone.
What are your memories of that time, of the early 90s when it was found?
Well, I thought it was quite extraordinary, quite honestly, because I thought all mine had actually been trashed totally. And I don't know why, because I didn't think I was that bad. But there you go. And they said, we've got this full storyline. I couldn't wait to see it. I thought it was found in a church in Hong Kong. Am I wrong?
I personally don't know.
Anybody know?
Outside a church? In a skip?
I thought you said a skip.
A skip?
Oh, right. Okay.
But who would have known what value it had for later generations of Who fans?
Someone in Hong Kong.
Who liked Doctor Who?
Yeah.
I don't remember anything about it, actually, even in the 90s, because I know there was a big BAFTA showing, wasn't
I was
Yeah, Clive.
I was working,
yeah.
I couldn't go. I heard about it then, I didn't think anything of it. As you know, this is something that we did, we all did 45 years ago?
Yes.
The first thing I ever did on television.
Yeah, 45
And I was dreading it being found. It's just American accents. You couldn't hear. I didn't know what I was doing.
So was it you who got rid of it then, originally?
Yeah.
And threw it away.
Don't find it. It could destroy what remains of my career.
Yeah, but it's just always a constant surprise that when you do something like that, it's a job to us. You know, his first job, my perhaps second television job. And as you walk away, you forget about it. It's gone. You've had a good time. You met lovely people like Debbie and the rest of the cast. And then it's over. And you can't imagine that 45 years later, here we are, still talking about it. It's fantastic, really. Isn't it?
Well, I thank God for my back catalogue. Daily.
We've all got back catalogues. Some a long way back.
Yes, and some are more embarrassing than others.
I never thought actually that when I went into it, it was a kids' show, wasn't it, on Saturday afternoons?
Late afternoon, 5 o'clock.
Saturday afternoon,
Behind the
something like
sofa,
that.
all that.
And the dads used to watch the football, and then Doctor Who came on, and the family used to gather around the television and watch Who, which is great. But it was a year for me, and I thought, oh, great, I've got a year's work. That's brilliant. I never knew that I'd be associated with it after 45 years, which is quite extraordinary, and I'm very flattered. It's been a big part of my life, Victoria, and I shall always remember her. She's still with me. I just done an audio for Big Finish called Meltdown, where Victoria comes back.
Ooh.
Yes, she does. It was a script they actually discovered. I was meant to be going back in 85 when Colin was a doctor. Then all of a sudden something happened and it was taken off air, but they discovered the script, so I've just done it last weekend. And I become his sort of companion again with Nicky Bryant, which was extraordinary. So watch out for it, Big Finish Productions, Meltdown. And I get taken over by aliens. Never done that before.
Deb, what are your memories of the little cybermats in Tomb of the Cybermen?
Oh dear. Memories? Well, the props guy, all the props people, they sent me up really, and they teased me because they had this remote control. They were all remote controlled, these cybermats. And of course they used to chase me all around the studio. And I hated it. Yes, do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember.
They really used to chase me. I didn't know what they had against me, but excuse me, I said, wait a minute, go for one of the others, but they never did. But yes, that's my memories of that.
It was a terrible prop.
No, it was awful.
It looked like it had been made by Blue Peter.
Yes.
And it had its feet were a bit of felt that had been cut like that and sprayed silver.
That's it.
That was it. And it had to attack me, come up here and go into my brain, and then Pat Troughton knocked it off. And it was done with a bit of wire, and they pulled it down me and then played it backwards. It was pre-CGI, that's for sure.
Did it tickle?
Yeah, it was rather nice. It was so thrilling to have Pat Troughton, who I so admired, save my life, because he was the best doctor, as far as I'm concerned, because he was sexy.
Sexy?
Yeah. He was great. Marvellous actor.
It was.
How'd you come to that conclusion? You're a bloke.
Doesn't matter. He was the one that coined that phrase. You said to Patrick, do you do theatre? And he was the one that said, no, I don't do shouting in the evenings.
Oh, yes, that's right.
That was Patrick.
That was
very
Pat.
good.
Yeah.
Bernard, what are your memories of being on the location in the Doctor Who quarry?
In the gravel pits at, where were they?
Gerard's Cross.
Gerard's Cross.
Oh, yes.
Well, you know, I wish to goodness we'd had an internet in those days, and then we could have written it all down and had a blog, and so you could remember
Sure.
exactly what happened. But I don't remember very much. I remember just wandering around. Very nice cast and crew. Lovely weather, wasn't it? It was very
Yes,
nice.
this is
Very nice weather, and
very
just
dusty.
just fun. You know, it was just a little, for me, and you know, a green actor really, watching these good actors like Pat Troughton and all the others. What was the name? Audrey? No, Audrey. Yeah.
Audrey
Richards. Yeah. And
Yeah.
who were the-
Aubrey.
You know all the others, don't you? Do you know all the rest of the cast? Can you name them all?
George Rubicek.
George Rubicek, yeah. Who else was there?
Who was the
Greek
tall...
bloke, George.
Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah.
Pascal, thank you.
That's it.
But of course, most of them are no longer with us.
I know. With the remnants of the cyber
This is
crew.
it.
We're still here, though.
We're still here,
Yeah,
Still working.
fighting, still
It
breathing.
was, you know, it's just a fun job. We had about 3 or 4 days in the gravel pits, did we? Something like that. So you
Something
can't
like that.
remember. You know, you,
Was I in the gravel pits?
You must have been.
I remember
were.
going.
You were, yeah.
What scenes? We shot the opening sequence.
That's right, climbing up the
right.
hills of-
That's right.
and I
remember
look at
that.
myself now when I see that, and I think I look like an outsider looking in on what everybody else is doing because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't
Well,
know
you
where the
didn't
camera
know. That was
was.
the first television I ever did.
My second.
I certainly didn't know what I was doing.
Newcomers was my first. Does anybody remember that?
I was in that.
Do you? My goodness.
Yes, with my dad.
Were you? Yeah.
Yeah. When did you do that?
Day before Doctor Who, I think. I can't remember.
It was a sort of soap like EastEnders.
It was. It was a Newcomers. It was called Newcomers because it was about a new town, like
That's right.
Milton Keynes, where people had moved to a new town.
Who are the stars? Are in?
Maggie Fitzgibbon, an Australian actress. Nobody remembers her.
Oh, I remember her.
And Alan. Doesn't matter.
No.
Didn't expect to be tested on it.
My dad was in that playing my father.
Pardon?
Dad was in that playing my father.
Oh,
Yeah, it was good.
Clive, you said it was
Yep.
Tomb of the Cybermen was your first TV.
Yeah.
What do you think of your accent you used
terrible.
for it?
Sure, I'm Welsh, and Welsh people historically are no good at a Welsh accent, apart from Tony Hopkins, because Tony is a mimic. But the Irish do American very well, the Welsh don't. And I think about 20 years later, when I was a lot more experienced, I did a kind of thriller thing for Antonia Bird. And in her review, Nancy Banks-Smith, the biggest mystery of the whole thing is why the heroine didn't know something was afoot when she encountered Clive Merrison doing a dodgy American accent. So at least I'm consistent.
Question for all of you. The Tomb of the Cybermen, it has this most impressive set of the tomb itself.
Yeah, it was terrific.
What are your memories of that? I don't know if you actually got to see it, Bernard.
I did.
You did?
I did because it was all in the studio. I think.
In Lime Grove.
Yeah, in Lime Grove. Yeah. I did. All I remember is it was a set. You know, again, I was wandering around a newcomer to all this fine world, and I don't really, to be absolutely honest, I don't really remember very much about it.
Make it up.
Yeah, I can't
But
find.
I remember going in and being new to TV and everything and seeing this set, and I was just gobsmacked by it.
Except when
And
you,
I remember, too, the thrill of having, because of having seen Doctor Who when I was a boy, because in those days you did it in real time, and you literally, they played the theme tune,
Yeah.
and you recorded it. And when I stood there and they played it, and I thought, no, I'm going to be in it. It was put a thing up my back, you know, it was thrilling. And
Well,
you
it
don't
also-
get that anymore
well,
on TV.
You know, it was also terrific because we actually had rehearsals in those days.
Yeah.
So the cast would get together for 3 or 4 days for each episode and rehearse and get to know each other. Nowadays, you walk onto the set and they say action.
Yeah,
Do you think
that's
that's
true.
that's a bad thing? Because
we get better if we rehearse.
yeah,
We do. Actors get better
Yeah.
if they
We get
rehearse.
better.
so
And it saves
And you feel safer.
producers time, and
Yeah.
they don't understand
You
that.
feel safer. You know what you're doing, and you know it's much better.
because
My
you wouldn't do
memories-
that in the theatre, would you? Like
Well,
just-
theatre, you're rehearsing all
Yeah,
the time.
precisely.
Well, you're rehearsing
Yeah,
for 3 or
it's
4 weeks.
getting better.
My memories of Tomb, though, the one memory I do have, and I think it's quite frightening when the Cybermen started to defrost in the honeycomb.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Does anyone remember
Clever,
that?
that
That huge
That was
honeycomb.
clever.
I know it was all cling film, whatever, but it was quite frightening.
Yeah.
They were actually static and frozen, and all of a sudden, one would go, and it was a big sequence.
Cracking noises.
Wonderful sequence. I always remember that.
Deb, in the third episode of Tomb, you and Pat Troughton have this lovely, which I feel is quite an iconic conversation, where Pat is talking about how to remember his family. It's such a lovely scene.
They call it a classic scene now, don't they? I'm talking about his age. He comes up to me or something. He says, "Why didn't you wake me?"
Yes.
Well, you're and he says, "Old." And I go, "Yes." And we have this great scene together. It really was.
Was it nice to rehearse that? Was it?
Yes, it was. But actually that day, I used to drive to the studios, but that day I woke up with flu. So they sent a car for me. And it was quite a long scene, one take. And I got right to the end of this big speech and I fluffed it. And I had to do it all over again. And Fraser Hines was actually under the table I was sitting on. I could hear him giggling. I could have killed him. But we did it. It was a lovely scene. I think they call it iconic.
Bernard, what do you remember of your death scene?
Embarrassing to watch. Yeah, it was quite simple. I remember particularly after it, when I was watching it, my son, who was a babe then, looked at the television and said, "What's my daddy doing on the floor?" He said. I don't remember much else about it.
How were you killed?
Yes, I
I
don't
was
remember.
killed by it wasn't by one of the Cybermen, but it looked like it was one of the Cybermen, wasn't it? But actually, I was shot in the back by somebody else, wasn't I, or something?
I think so,
Something
something like that.
I did this thing of go, "Arr!" or something stupid like that as the Cyberman wobbled across the set. I would remember him wobbling in, and it wasn't very smooth. He goes do 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 like that. And that was the other thing about the scenes that I did with Fraser in the control room, is that nowadays all the special effects are so fantastic. Nowadays, that is nowadays. But when you watch that, and Fraser pulls a handle, or I pulled a handle, and it wobbled a bit.
Of course,
It was all just. I mean, it was fantastic for the time, and I think everybody loved it. But you compare it to now, and it's.
But all the handles in the TARDIS, they always used to shake, didn't they?
But I mean, you know,
do it very carefully.
These days you're acting, when you're doing this stuff, you're acting with a blue screen.
That's right, yeah, and
I
they
remember
put it
doing
on
a scene in The Magical Leprechauns or some damn thing with Whoopi Goldberg, and she was in LA. And she was, there was
He projected himself.
there was a
He
kind of
very good.
brush with a cross on it, and it said Whoopi on it. In front of and so I was acting with this brush saying Whoopi, and I was really pissed off because I wanted to meet Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah.
But then you see, there I am doing.
That's how they make movies, is it?
Weird.
Clive, you also got shot.
Did I?
Yes, in Tomb of the Cybermen.
Okay.
And you got to be the hero at the start of the fourth
Really?
episode. You jump in front of the bullet.
Do I? Marvellous.
Our hero.
He's obviously seen all his work. You can tell, can't you?
We've touched upon your son's reaction to
Yeah.
Doctor Who. What was your family's reaction for you guys being in Doctor Who?
It was in the front page of the Tenby Observer. Local boy in Doctor Who. And my mother, well, whenever I was on TV, she used to always go shopping the next day. And she'd say, "It took me hours to get round the shops."
That's lovely.
But I mean, the Tenby Observer, I come from a little Welsh fishing town, Tenby. And I remember when I told my mother, I had this TV, and you can, and it has a little thing, and you can change the TV, and that made the Tenby Observer. Tenby boy changes TV with remote control. Sweet.
I was on the front of the Loughton Gazette, because new girl Victoria lives here, Deborah Watling, etc., etc. Which was good, that was fine. My parents accepted it, and Dad said, "Well done, darling, keep going, this is good for you, a year's work, why not?" He didn't realise that he was going to end up on screen with me, but there you go. When he made
Was he in Doctor Who, Jack?
Yep, Professor Travers. Yes, he came in. Because, we got the storylines about 6 weeks before we actually did them.
Yeah.
Read through them. And I saw this part of Professor Travers, and I thought, cool, my dad's out of work, why not?
Yeah, that's how it works.
Nepotism,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes, why not? So I went to Innes Floyd, that then produced, and I said,
Yes.
look, what about my dad for this part? And he said, what a brilliant idea. We have to sort of make him up to be older, etc., whatever. I said, yeah, that's great. So I was living at home at the time, so I went back to Troughton. I said, Dad, a great proposition for you. He said, what? And I went, well, there's a part in Who? Professor Travers, and you'll be absolutely brilliant in it. And Innes said, will you do it? And I said, well, we're going to work together, Dad, for the first time. Wouldn't that be great? There was a long pause, and he said, I'll think about it.
I thought you were going to say, how much is the money?
He's a wonderful producer in this Lloyd.
He was.
One of those real old-style gentleman producers these days.
Always wore blazers with gold buttons.
Yeah.
I remember that.
All the producers now are all called Damien, and they're about 12.
Yes.
With acne.
Going along the line, what are your memories of Pat Troughton?
Who wants to start?
You start.
Me.
Yeah. Ladies
What
first.
do you say about Pat, dear Pat? My memories of that lovely man, he was kind, gentle. He became a great mate, and he had always that twinkle in the eye, which you could not resist at all. Pat used to take me out for tea with his various wives. I said, which one this time? He was quite a naughty boy, that lovely twinkle, as I say. But you could always go up to Pat if you had a problem, whatever, and say, Pat, I don't quite know how to do this. And he wouldn't actually say, do it this way. He'd say, well, think about it that way. And we were like, he was like my second dad, really. It was extraordinary. I only did a year in it, but we became very, very close. And I have to say, I still miss him. I know he's been dead for 14, 15 years, but he was the most wonderful, charitable man that one could meet. And you'll think I'm silly, but I have a photo of him framed in my kitchen diner. So I have my own thoughts still about Pat. And I'll never forget him. I'm sure none of you will either. That's it.
Well, I think I've given my view on Pat Troughton. He was one of the best actors of his generation. And he did have a Byzantine family life.
Yes.
It's not the time to go into it. But it's always given me great pleasure to work with his sons, who are terrific actors too. And one of them lives near me in Suffolk.
Which one?
David, I think.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But I mean, every person has their own favourite Doctor Who. And, he was mine, and I was lucky enough to actually work with him.
On your first job?
On my very first job. Not a bad person to
No.
give you a few tips.
I think he was what actors would always call a true pro, wasn't he? He was a proper professional actor who did his job very well. Great to work with. Never caused any trouble, did he? Or just got on with everybody.
But he always said, dear Pat, he was a jobbing actor.
Better.
Yeah.
You know, he's much better than
He was
that.
better.
I always hate that phrase.
I loathe it.
He lived just
Like
round the back of
Lovelace.
me in Kew, and I used to bump into him. I live in Kew, and I used to bump into him really regularly in the shops. He was always. It seemed he's one of those people that remembered everybody that he ever worked
Yes,
with. It
that's
seemed.
right.
You
No
know, I, mean,
sides.
I didn't have, as you know, I didn't have a huge part in the Claws of Axos. Sorry, the other one, Tomb of the Cybermen. But he'd always come and say, "Hello, Bernard. How are you? You know, great to see you. Are you busy? You know, all actors always say that. Are you busy?" I say, "Yes, I'm shopping."
You just touched on the Claws of Axos, which we'll go into now. Your memories of that story?
Lots of funny makeup. It was great, actually. I was in Zcast just before that, and the director of the Claws of Axos, Michael Ferguson, came up to me and he said, "I've got this part in the Claws of Axos. It's quite nice. You might enjoy it, but you've got to put sort of gold face and gold stuff all over your head. Would you like to do it?" I read the script and I said, "Yeah, it was great," because I went straight from Z-Cars to Elizabeth Isle and then straight into...
How long had you been in Z-Cars?
3.5 years.
What was the name of your character?
P.C. Newcomb.
Newcomb.
Hey up, lads. And I went straight into... So, of course, I had to do the joke, didn't I? I had to put... With all the makeup on, I walked onto the set, I was with my Z-Cars hat on.
Did they sing the theme tune?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. It's very funny. The makeup was a pain, quite honestly, because they put the gold stuff all over my face. I had a sort of skin-tight suit, leotard, like a leotard. They put all this stuff over my face, and it took ages to get it out, because it would be stuck in the corner of your eyes. And the next day, I'd wake up in the morning, there'd be bits dripping out of my eye or out of my nose, wherever. And I got this when it went out, I did an interview with the Radio Times, and I got this very strange letter from a man. I said how difficult it was to get all the makeup off, and he wrote to me and said, "If you have to do anything like this again, please get in touch with me, because I regularly model wearing just gold and silver paint. And I know exactly how to get it all off, and I'd like to help you." He said.
We've all had a few letters like that, and I'm sure Deborah has.
I ran back to my wife and said, "What am I going to do? You might be a stalker." But it was a lovely job, actually, apart from getting the makeup off.
And you touched on earlier that you've reprised the role for Big Finish.
Yeah, I've just done, towards the end of last year, I did The Feast of Axos, an audio disc that comes out this month, I believe, sometime, or very shortly.
Yeah, sure.
And that was just lovely as well. Going back, doing the same lines virtually as I did before, including, what was the one I said to you? "Earth will be sucked dry." I had to say that again. It was just very nice. And Nicholas Briggs, this is, praising myself if you like, but sometimes actors are allowed to do it. Nicholas Briggs wrote in a bit of publicity for it that he was very happy that Bernard Holley was willing to reprise the role of Axos in. And he said, and then he said, and it was as if not a year existed between the two performances. But in fact, 39 years did. Played the same part 39 years
You've
later.
kept your looks.
Oh, yes, I have. And my voice, that's important.
Nice.
And Clive,
Yes.
you came back to Doctor Who in '87 with
Yes.
Sylvester McCoy in Paradise Towers.
That's right.
What are your memories of that story?
I remember Richard Bryars telling me that I destroyed his career. He played the chief caretaker, and he talked like that, and I played the deputy chief caretaker, so I thought, I'll talk a bit like that, and so like that. Anyway, we had a lot of fun. And on the producer's run, because in those days he used to, and the producer used to come down with everybody, and of course it doesn't happen anymore, but John Nathan Turner came down, and then at the end of it, he turned to Richard Bryars and said, "You two are taking the piss." I said, no, we're not. He says, "You're over the top." And Richard Bryars said, "You've destroyed my career. I wasn't going to do it. You made me go over the top. I'm going to end up running an antique shop in Kent because of you."
You're saying it like I'm Richard Bryars.
But I remember Elizabeth Spriggs and Brenda Bruce never got on. Spriggs used to make terrible remarks, and she had a few. And she said to Brenda in the past, "Oh, darling," it was called the Sprigg moment, "you were so marvellous at the RSC. I followed you, worked with you with empresses and queens and countesses and the great and the good, and you're so marvellous and dignified." And I always think, how did she do it on those little short, fat legs? And there was a scene in Paradise Towers where Brenda had to get Spriggs by the legs and shove it down a waste disposal unit. And I've never seen an actor do anything with such relish.
Actors can be bitches, can't they? Isn't it wonderful?
Spriggs, she was a marvellous actress.